I am I am so very lucky in how my college career uh, transformed into my professional career because it was virtually seamless. And here's what happened. I did not work at the Yale Daily News. That was a highly competitive organization, and I wasn't interested in playing school politics. So instead, I went to work for the Yale Banner, which was the um, yearbook, but it was also campus publications. It was the freshman directory. We were uh, um, the organization under which the New Journal, which is a very good student journalistic publication, was housed. And I spent all of my time basically working on the Yale Banner, not going to classes, um, but really working on the banner and getting the experience in layout and design and editorial production. I envisioned, Ray, that I would go into magazines from that background. I couldn't imagine myself in daily journalism, but I could imagine myself in, say, weekly journalism or magazines. And what happened next was that as I was distributing copies of the freshly printed 1975 Yale Banner Yearbook to the heads of the residential colleges at Yale, then but no longer known as masters, I took a copy to Bill Zinser, the author of On Writing Well and a wonderful columnist for Life magazine, among other things, through his career. I took him his copy, and he asked me about my future, and I said, well, I'm going to be a summer intern at the Minneapolis Tribune, but then Bill, I don't know what's going to happen in the fall. I've been told at the Tribune that no matter how well I do, there is going to be no job waiting for me at the end because in 1975, the country was in the depths of a recession. No one was hiring anywhere. So Zinser kind of furrowed his brow and said, I wish I'd known a couple of days ago that you were going to be free in the fall because John Hersey just got back from Martha's Vineyard, where his neighbor, Scotty Reston, said he was looking for someone to work on the Vineyard Gazette. And if I'd known you were free, I would have recommended you. And I said, Bill, I'm free. So Zinser calls Hersey, Hersey calls Reston. The next thing I know, I'm in Reston's office on 43rd Street in New York, absolutely bowled over by the guy because he was then arguably the most influential, most powerful single columnist in Washington, certainly. He happened to be in New York on the day that I was. And there I was in his presence. And I had read all about him when I read The Kingdom and the Power when I was a high school student, the Gay Talese book about the New York Times. And suddenly I'm in his office. He's talking about the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, Henry Beadle Huff, this great tradition of country journalism, absolutely spellbinding, absolutely beguiling. I'm all in on it. But he says, Dunlap, you've got to see the place that you're going to be accepting a job in before we talk about a job there. Not an unreasonable proposition. So Dunlap heads to Martha's Vineyard, and my heart is shattered almost instantly. I have a very awkward interview with the managing editor of the Gazette, who was Ray. As a parenthetical aside, I will say his name was Doug Cabral, and I had no idea at that stage in the game about the Portuguese diaspora. I had no idea why someone named Cabral was in Martha's Vineyard. There he was. He had no use for me because I was one of these people that Scotty Reston was, bright boys that Scotty Reston was sending. And I took a walk around Edgartown and realized that in 20 minutes I was back at the spot from which I started. And I thought, oh my God, I'm a city boy. I can't oh my God, I can't be here. Even in May when it was beautiful, and imagining it in February or March. And I thought, how am I going to write a letter to turn down the greatest man in journalism? And to say I can't take a job, even though I need a job. And what I was just, I was heartbroken. And then I ran into Reston on Summer Street in Edgartown. He wasn't supposed to be there. But it was such a beautiful weekend that he and his wife, Sally, had come up from Washington, and suddenly, by complete coincidence, or who knows why, I'm face to face with Reston. And so I have no chance to compose this oleaginous, apologetic, I can't take the job. He said, he's puffing on his pipe. And he said, well, Mr. Dunlap, what do you think? I said, Mr. Reston, ah, you were right. You were right. I'm a city boy. I can't, I won't be able to take a job here at the Gazette. I can't possibly work for the Gazette. Well, I understand why you feel that way. Let's think about a job for you at the New York Times instead. And so at 23, I was hired at the New York Times, and I have been there ever since. This September will mark my 50th year. That's a long-winded answer, but that's how I made the transition. Before I left New Haven, I knew that I had a job at the New York Times, something that I would have imagined only at the very end of my career, and that's where I began.